Welcome back to our Checkout Devlog series. In the last video, we covered a little bit about our studio as well as development on the shift screen. Today, I wanted to go over the other major area of the game, the break room. This is where you interact with your coworkers and prepare yourself mentally for your shift. Here's what's on the agenda for this video. Let's get started. For the shift screen, I made a bunch of individual items and gave them to Steve to put in the game one at a time. Each item was only to be used once, so this method worked fine. For the break room, I made a tile sheet so items could be reused multiple times in different areas. For some items like the floors, I made several options, unsure of which would look the best or if we'd use different floors in different areas. This gave Steve some freedom to adjust the layout of the break room how he liked. We're still adjusting it to make a final version of the layout. I'm also working on a second tile sheet for more items as the space still felt like it could use more things to make it look complete. It takes a lot of work for a space to feel lived in, or in this case, worked in. For the characters, I've been working on their idle animations and choosing where they'll be on their breaks. Each one has a unique personality, which I'll discuss in the writing part of this video, but I wanted to make sure their animations reflected a bit of that personality. I find making characters is a lot more difficult than making environment items or even products, but they're coming together. After placing items in the break room, creating collisions, and getting a movable character, Steve's main task in the break room was to make a dialogue system. The previous dialogue manager he created was, in his words, poorly architectured and wasn't flexible enough. I'll take his word for it, as I don't know how to program. He experimented with various dialogue manager plugins / add-ons, but they either didn't work as expected or would require too many modifications of the base code to properly insert the dialogue manager. So he decided he'd try to make another new custom dialogue manager that would work for our game. Thankfully, Checkout doesn't require anything too complicated. Here's the general architecture of the custom dialogue manager. He created a global script, or what is commonly known as a singleton, or an autoload in Godot. This code is initiated at the beginning of launching the game and is not instantiated, which is important to ensure that we have one persistent state. Dialogue lines are kept in a .json file that is structured like this. Look away if seeing code scares you. When he needs to create a dialogue, all he needs to do is call the dialogue manager's display dialogue function and provide the scene, character, and key as arguments. The dialogue manager will insert a dialogue box into the current scene. The dialogue box is purely responsible for displaying the text it receives from the dialogue manager. Once there is no more dialogue to display, then a signal is emitted to the dialogue manager, which then will remove the dialogue box from the scene. Sounds easy enough, right? If so, good. Maybe you can explain it to me. I'm in charge of the writing for Checkout, which I am very excited for. I love writing dialogue and creating interesting characters with big personalities. It's a joy for me to get inside their heads and write how I think they would talk. I think NPCs are the secret to making a world feel alive and lived in. No NPC is too small for me to think about what their backstory might be. The characters in Checkout are all inspired by people we've worked with in retail in real life, so I have a little shortcut for inspiration for this game. In total, you'll be working with 10 coworkers across multiple departments. 3 of them you've already seen in the trailer: Brian the manager, Alex the loss prevention guy, and Julia, who is in health and beauty. Every shift you'll have a few coworkers to chat with spread throughout the break room, depending on their shift schedule. I created a spreadsheet with all the shifts in the game and wrote some lines of dialogue for each character for their scheduled shifts. Is this what it feels like to be a manager with complete control over employees' schedules? Some characters will have seasonal specific dialogue and some will just be general retail or personal life dialogue. If you've ever worked in retail, some of the conversations might be a little too real for you. Originally, I had the spreadsheet formatted in a way that made sense to me. I listed all the holidays / times of the year and then the characters with lines for up to 2 possible interactions per shift. For characters not working shifts, I grayed them out. It was a long list horizontally. When I showed Steve, we realized how differently our brains work, as well as how our departments could clash. To make his life easier, I reworked the spreadsheet to show the shift number and only the characters who would be working that day with their 2 lines of dialogue. This is longer vertically and cuts down on extra space, as well as makes it easy for him to copy and paste it into Godot. The goal for the break room is to give you a break between the main gameplay loop and to develop this little world through talking with the characters who live there. While working in a team splits up the work to get things done faster, it also requires a lot of teamwork and communication. And triple checking with each other is sometimes not excessive, but a necessity, so you don't go back and have to redo things when you realize you both had a different idea of what the plan was. Each spreadsheet I created to keep up with assets needed to be altered to fit how it would be imported into Godot, and for Steve to easily understand what I had written. Lists of ideas either of us had needed to have a process to create, edit, and polish. For example, the Steam achievements. I spearheaded the creation of them, I named them, and wrote out some parameters of how to accomplish them in the game. Steve looked them over, but had some edits. We didn't have a process for how to communicate these edits, or that there even needed to be edits, so they sat for weeks in limbo. I noticed he had highlighted a few, but we hadn't established what to do next or who should be in charge of it, so we discussed ways to handle this process in the future. As we've both been working in tandem on things, we've also needed things from one another as we go along. Steve would need some assets to fill in something he programmed. I would need him to edit something I had written. We would tell each other in person or message each other in Discord, but we each had our own way of keeping track of our own tasks, and no way to streamline this process of handing tasks back and forth. We decided to use a desktop app that we could assign things to each other and leave notes on tasks. I used an app called Todoist at a previous job, so we're trying it out for this project. We separated it into sections like art, programming, and marketing, and then add tasks. This has been helpful in creating another way we can communicate and stay organized. Also, we have a demo up on the Steam page, so if you haven't tried it out yet, feel free to take a look. Finally, we've reached the game quotes part of the video. For my quote,
"Hey, you! You're finally awake."
After working on many projects throughout my life, making games just feels right. It's very fulfilling, like I've finally woken up in the correct universe, which, if I woke up in Tamriel, I would feel right at home. Some parts are hard and it's a lot of work and time, but I've loved the process so far. It feels like magic. And for Steve?
Stop! 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 Stop!
Well, that's it for this devlog. Thank you so much for watching this far, as well as thank you to those who left such nice comments on our first devlog. I was honestly shocked to see so many. Making a game is such a big undertaking, and when you spend dozens of hours every week on it, you sort of get caught up in your own world, for better or worse, without knowing if what you're making is even good. It was motivating to have just a little positive external reinforcement. I hope we can create a game that lives up to our expectations. And also this person's expectations. If we let them down, I will never forgive myself. See you all in the next one.